Okay, everyone, how's it going? It's me here again, and this one we're talking about the horror movie Hellraiser. Now, Hellraiser is a movie created by Clive Barker in 1987, and it's probably one of my favorite horror movies, and most people probably know about it. It did very well, and I think, to me, it kind of changed up horror a little bit. And when I say that, I meant you didn't have the usual, like, Jason, Freddy, or Michael Myers in it. In it, as what they call themselves, is more explorers, but sometimes, according to them in the series, most people call them angels or demons. Now, the story's kind of... It follows Kirsty, who is the son of Larry, who's also married to Julia, who had an affair with Larry's brother Frank, and sometime in the beginning of the movie, Frank gets killed while solving the Lament configuration, and if I remember, escapes from hell, and the Cenobites kind of want him back, and at some point Kirsty ends up coming in possession of the Lament box because she followed Julia there because she was leading men back to her house to sacrifice them to Frank, because Frank wanted to rejuvenate himself because he wanted to run away with Julia. And I make that sound a little bit more complicated than what it might be, but it's not too complicated. If you watch it, you'll understand. But Kirsty doesn't want to stay at the house they're living at because she doesn't want to live with them. Live with Julia, mostly. And, as I said, at some point during that time, when she follows Julia there and finds out what's actually happening, she escapes the Lament configuration and solves it when she ends up going to the hospital because she passes out. And she ends up telling the Cenobites who the Cenobites appear, and the Cenobites appear because when you solve the Lament configuration, they come, they grab you and take you back and torture you pretty much, and that's what they enjoy doing. They enjoy torturing, as you hear Pinhead quote many times, like, saying, like, we'll tear your soul apart, or, like, your name will be most known, or torture, stuff like that. And Pinhead has some of the best quotes in this. I have found myself lately going and watching Pinhead quotes on YouTube, and I just love it. And there's a real good one from Hellbound that I highly recommend watching. I'd say if you do watch them, watch the first three, and don't really have to do it after that. But in Hellraiser, at some point, they come across Frank, who they end up taking back with them, and they kind of lie. I mean, what I find hard about the Hellraiser series, especially of them all, is compared to the first one to the rest, Pinhead's personality always seems to change. Now, in the first one, he tells Kirsty that if she brings them Frank, they will let her go. They don't actually do that, so she ends up having to, like, unsolve the Lament box, because pretty much like I said, when you solve it, they come. If you unsolve it, it sends them back to hell. And that's what she does, and that's how she gets away. But in the first one, there seems to be this merchant who sells the box to someone. And so you don't really know if, like, he's working for him or not, which it would assume that he's working for the Cenobites. And so that kind of sets up for the next movie. It's a real simple plot when you watch it. There's not much to it. But it's so memorable. Like I said, it changed up the way things are for horror back then. Especially seeing as they're just creatures from hell, or people from hell, depending on how you look at it. Because they don't really, like, have memory of when they were humans. They're, like, a completely new being. And you can just look at them, because they're always, like, some form disfigured. Pinhead has, like, the nails in his head and stuff. There's one that just, like, has a really giant head. He's more of, like, their heavy person, really, who, like, does, like, the bulk of the work. And then, of course, there's, like, one lady who's, like, skin on her scalp's, like, peeled back and held back by wires. And it's so creative with the way they did it. Like, it really feels like... I'm not a huge Clive Barker fan. I don't really like a lot of Clive Barker's stuff. But I think it's one of his best works that he's ever done. It's one that I will admit I'm a fan of, and as I said, it is my favorite horror movie. And if you have not seen it and you're a horror fan, I highly recommend it, because it changed up the game, I think, back then for horror movies. And I think to this day it's still well known for that, because it was so different. Because, I will admit, Blair Witch was a movie that changed kind of the way things are done for horror, and a lot of them kind of did that, but now there's so many movies that do it like that, it's just like, I don't see it. And I really don't see movies like Hellraiser anymore. I mean, I see movies like, there's like The Collector or something, or Sinister, or maybe like newer versions of Friday the 13th, or Jason, or Halloween, but I don't really see anything try to be like Hellraiser anymore. It's like Hellraiser was just its own thing back then, and it's still its own thing, because there's no real horror movies that show beings from hell having to come up and people try to survive against them and fight back. I just don't see that anymore. And I think that's why, to me, Hellraiser is still probably one of my favorite movies, just because there's nothing like it that beats it. But that was just my thoughts. I mean, if you haven't seen Hellraiser, I would highly recommend it. If you don't like horror movies, I would still give it a shot. Maybe it'll get you into horror movies. And if you can't stand gore, I would highly recommend not watching this, because there's a lot of gore in Hellraiser. It's one of the main things about it, especially with Pinhead, who has like the ability to have like these like wires come out, grab you, and rip your skin apart and everything. And he does it every movie. And so it's one of the things I'm always like, yes. And whenever I watch Hellraiser, I'm just like, wait, do I cheer for the good guy or the good girl, since Christie's the kind of the main character, the good one, and Pinhead's the bad one? It's like, who do I cheer for? I like Christie because she's just hot, and that's not sexist in any way. She's actually one who portrays her as a very good actress. Just she's really attractive. And then you have Pinhead, who's just one badass villain, and it's just like, who do I cheer for? Do I cheer for her? Do I cheer for him? Can I just like them both? But it's hard. It's really hard. And I will say Pinhead's probably gonna be one of your favorite villains if you ever watch it. But that's all I'll say about that, and I will see you guys next time.